Oh, well, no worries. That sometimes happens, and we got a lot going on out there. So, look, you got your big town hall meeting tonight. What are you guys looking for, basically? I mean, you have the lead, but, it's like the debate on Saturday night. I applauded your father. I got to tell you, Donald, I applauded your father for taking the failed George Bush legacy of these wars head on and telling the truth. And I think that's what's driving it. Your father tells the truth.
Well, he's not going to sugarcoat anything. I think government's gotten so used to sort of this participation medal type mentality that we see so much in this country at this point. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. He's never done that in business. He's never done it in his personal life. And I think that message is resonating with hardworking Americans. They're like, okay, we know it's a mess. Stop pretending that it's not. And that message is coming across great. And I'm just very proud of what he's been able to do.
Give us a little bit of feel about the reaction now you're getting in South Carolina. I know that you're getting very big crowds there, but look, this is a former state, a former textile state that was very dependent on manufacturing jobs. The majority of those now gone away, so it's trying to retool itself. Your father's message of getting rid of these crazy trade deals, trying to bring manufacturing jobs back, how is that playing there?
Well, listen, I think the numbers probably speak for themselves. I mean, it's playing well, but I think it's going to play well across the country. That's what we have to do. I mean, he's been a deal guy, and I've seen him make deals for the last 35 years. That's what he does. And, you have government politicians who've never negotiated a deal. They've never probably, half of them never even negotiated their own mortgage. And they're out there making $1 trillion decisions that are going to affect our children, their children behind them, in a vacuum, not knowing, having no understanding of business, having never done it before, having never actually employed real employees, and certainly the employees that they employ, it's their special interest money that's funding it. They've never had a vested interest in anything other than campaigning. And, I think the fact that my father doesn't have that, he has real-world experience. He's done this with his own money. He's employed tens of thousands of people whose livelihoods have depended on his success and the success of his company. That's a big difference. I mean, that message is really resonating. Those people see it. I see it, all across the country now that I've had the pleasure of traveling. Hardworking, blue-collar Americans are saying, this is the guy for us. This is the guy that's speaking to us. It's not about handouts. It's about getting these people the right opportunities to do things. And, I think it's going incredibly well.
Look, at the end of the day, it's about getting jobs for real Americans in America, jobs that have been going away. And I think your father's been articulating that for some time. And I just want to get you to comment on this, Donald Trump Jr. One of the criticisms is that they say, well, your father has changed on some issues. But I see the opposite, because I've been fighting these battles with your father on trade going back to the 80s when he was, I think it was Donald Trump and me and Pat Buchanan were the only three Republicans in the face of the earth that said that NAFTA would be a disaster, that NAFTA would be a disaster. All the globalists were for it. All the establishment, the country club Republicans said it's proven to be a catastrophe. So, I found your father to be incredibly consistent on the critical issues of the day.
Well, I think certainly, when you talk about economic issues, you can go back and look at interviews from 25 years ago. Those stances haven't changed because he's always been a businessman. I mean, I think as he's grown, and so I'm sure there's been some evolution on social issues because that happens. I mean, I've noticed that with myself over time. Things change once you've actually gone through a real world experience. I know for me, as a father now of 5 kids, my views on a lot of these things have changed. Personally, now that I've seen that, and you've gone through some of this stuff, so. As it relates to the stuff that matters, as it relates to the economy, these sort of things that are, major issues for this country when we have, 19, almost $20 trillion in debt, he's been remarkably consistent. He's been more consistent than anyone, and frankly, he's the only one that's ever contributed to that actual economy.
Exactly, and that's, to me, that is the driving message of this campaign. It's about jobs, and your father's been unbelievably consistent on that, fighting this battle a long time. And so when people say he's inconsistent, I just find it to be laughable. Hey, let's get to your dad's battle here with Ted Cruz. Doesn't seem too happy about some of the things Cruz has said. He's called him dishonest. He said on the debate, he suggested that he lies. Where do you guys stand on this now?
Listen, I'm not a policy guy, right? John, I build buildings, I build hotels, I build resorts. We employ people. That's what I do for a living. But I mean, I think if you look at it pretty objectively, you can see that there's a pretty clear pattern of, whether it be, the calls about Carson dropping out, and it seems like Cruz will do just about anything to win. He'll do whatever he has to say. He'll fabricate whatever he needs to be convenient. He'll ignore the truth, and then he'll apologize later after he's scored his points or whatever it is. He just seems like a very disingenuous guy. He doesn't seem trustworthy at all. I mean, it seems like it's just very phony to me. But what do I know? I build buildings.
Did you think going into this, Donald Trump Jr., that having come from kind of outside the political realm, did you guys really think politics was going to be this nasty?
It's interesting. I mean, I guess we're used to being pretty nasty ourselves, and my father is a great guy, and he's an awesome guy, and you'll see that when he's in a town hall type setting, right? When he's talking to the people, his message really comes across. But when he's in a place where everyone's lobbing arrows at him because he's in the lead, and they're just trying to do whatever they can to bolster themselves by taking him down, he's going to be tough, and he is going to be brutal, and that's what we have to be because that's the country. That's the situation we're in the country. We're not in this rose-colored glasses type setting that everyone likes to paint, the democratic picture of the world, which is, everything's great, don't worry about it, we can just keep giving away free stuff, and that doesn't mean anything. It's if you manage your household like we manage our country, you'd be living on the streets by now. It doesn't work forever. And so, I guess we're used to pretty nasty, but we're used to still, people being reasonably honorable, which I haven't seen at all in politics. And I think that's why the American people are fed up with politicians. They'll do whatever they have to do to get elected. Then they'll do whatever their special interests tell them. And that's oftentimes contrary to what their constituency and what the American people would want. And then, they spend 90% of their time raising more money to get reelected so they can repeat the process. And it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. And everyone knows it now, and they're sick of it. So, we finally have a candidate who's outside of that world, who's funding his own campaign. He's turned down millions of dollars because he doesn't want anyone to ever wonder, hey, does someone own Trump? Because no one's going to own Trump. And that you can't say that about any of the other guys. They're all owned by other people. I mean, when you look at the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in attack ads, these are people's special interests just trying to take down my father. I mean, that to me is the greatest compliment in the world, that these guys all do whatever they can because they know it's not in their best interest. The special interests, the establishment, they hate it because the party as they know it, the same old that they've been able to manipulate and make careers out of for all these things is over if my father gets in. And that's why they're so afraid, and that's why they're spending that kind of money doing it. I mean, they've spent more money in attack ads against him than my father spent on his campaign to be in first place. And that shows you how good a businessman he is.
I'll tell you, that's really unbelievable. The amount of incoming fire your father is taking every day, whether it be from moderators in the debates or people on the debate stage, and now that you mentioned hundreds of millions of dollars in attack ads in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, I mean, it defies a lot of logic that he would still be in the position that he's. Your father in the debate last week said that Saturday, I believe was Saturday night, said that he is not in favor of the Republicans confirming or going through the process of confirming a Supreme Court justice until there's a presidential election. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Mitch McConnell came out on Saturday right after Judge Scalia passed and said, look, we have to wait. We're going to let the people decide. That was Sunday. By Tuesday, at least 4 Republicans had already caved into the Democrats. And it was a day and a half. I mean,
Correct.
Is this part of the problem here?
It is. I mean, people, they talk about, and this is perhaps the ultimate irony, right? When they're saying, "Oh, Trump's not a true conservative." Meanwhile, they have their conservative values and they fold in about 2 seconds. You're not going to see that from my father, and I've seen him do this for 35 years, 40 years in his career. He gets deals done. He negotiates deals. He makes deals, but he does it on his terms. He's able to get along with everyone, but it still has to be on his terms, or he walks away. You've seen him do that in the past. This is one of the most important, probably if not the most important part of this whole election would be getting this next justice, because what the left does is they don't hire justices that actually read the Constitution. They hire people that legislate their liberal values, from the bench. The right doesn't do that. They'll put conservatives on there, but will actually still look at the Constitution and read it for what it is. The left is much more devious about how they do that. So this is an incredibly important thing. And for these guys, these big guys, they talk about how tough they are in Washington, how conservative they are, and, they fold in 2 minutes. It's pathetic.
It really is pathetic, and I mean, you hit it on the head, and that's part of the issue why people just feel betrayed. I was telling my audience earlier, Donald, that I was on a media conference call yesterday with Senator Chuck Schumer, your senator from where you live. I was on with Chuck Schumer and Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal. And this was a call with the media, and they had on the call MoveOn.org and some other left-wing organizations.
Of course. And guess what? Chuck Schumer did the exact same thing and said the exact same thing in, 2006? Where he was like, we can't possibly do it. Wait till Obama's in there to make the nomination. But that's the hypocrisy of Washington. That's what these guys, their number one rule is do as I say, not as I do. And the American people are seeing through it. It's really sad. So these guys are saying, oh, no, we got to do it. He's got an extra, 300 days in the office and whatever. We would never do that, except for when it behooves us to do it. It's really sad. I mean, you can see the frustration I have with this because, again, I'm a builder, I'm a developer. That's what I do. I mean, I've been in politics for all of 3 weeks now. But, in that short amount, now, I've been a junkie, watching on the sidelines for many years. But if you're not fed up, if you live in this country and you're not fed up with this, frankly, on both sides, it doesn't matter what position you're on, if you're not fed up, which is the Bernie Sanders effect. I mean, it's why he's done so well on the opposite side, because, people look at Hillary and say, really? It's statistically impossible for all of the controversy to not have any impact. It's not physically possible. And people say, oh, no, everyone's going to be great. It's just sad to watch. And that's where this country is going. And I think that's why guys that are outsiders and guys like my father who will speak their mind, it's why he's doing so well, and it's why it's resonating, especially for us with, hard-working, blue-collar Americans that are like, you know what, this guy's saying what I'm thinking. This guy's actually speaking to me. Not speaking a soundbite, looking for, a two-line headliner in the media. It's resonating, and people are seeing it. It's a real movement.
Well, there's no question it is, and I think many Republicans feel that they've been so betrayed. And I just want you to, when you see your father, just say that on this phone call with the media, Schumer said, look, 4 Republicans have already folded their tent, his words, folded their tent, and he said it's been 2 days. Imagine, he said, when we put pressure on some of these shaky Republicans, imagine how many will come to see it our way. I mean, that's what he said right on the call.
No,
it's unbelievable.
It's funny because there's a saying in Washington to be Schumered, which is you've probably heard of it, which is someone does work on a bill and then he comes in and gives a press conference as though he did it. So he's the ultimate guy in Washington in terms of just looking for the media soundbite and trying to get credit for something. But in this case, he's actually one of the few times he's actually probably right. The Republicans will keep folding because none of them hold to their convictions. And I think again, if there's one thing that you'll see with my father, and you've seen him do this, whether it's walking away from the Fox debate in Iowa, if he doesn't like it, if he doesn't like the way, he's going to walk away. He's not just going to fold. And all these other guys are folders. They can't do it because they've never had to deal with real pressure in real life. They're playing with other people's money. It's a very different situation than when you've done it your whole life, where there's actually stuff at stake. My father's employed tens of thousands of people whose livelihoods have depended on him, his company's success, his success. There's a big difference. There's actually something at stake.
All right, that's going to be the final word. We want to thank Donald Trump Jr. for being with us, and he says, don't get Schumered, like we were the other day on the telephone call where Chuck Schumer basically said, hey, just wait, Republicans are going to keep caving. That's what they do. Not Donald Trump, though. Okay, Donald Trump Jr., thanks for being with us. We really appreciate the time.
Have a good day.
Good luck.